Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. This episode we're going to be studying a piece by the established multidisciplinary artist known as A-Merk, and in this episode we're going to look at this incredible crystalline texture here. We're also going to explore the influences of cityscapes, so let's jump right into it. So whenever you first see this work, we're struck by this incredible flurry of crystalline parts here. Your first impression is likely one of awe to the incredibly ornate and detailed display before us here. And so one of the first things you're going to notice is the impact of color. We see this quite clearly, right? Red and pink are certainly the most dominant color within the composition here, but aside from that, you have a diverse range of tones, everywhere from blue to green. You have yellows, you have oranges, you have purples as well. So this gives a sense of visual energy and kind of awakens the composition before us here. Another thing you're going to notice is the impact of light. It really gives a incredible vibrance when you first see this work, right? This not only, of course, alongside color intensifies the visual energy of the composition, but it gives so much to offer here, and it gives this kind of lifelike, almost possesses the piece before us. So it's absolutely stunning. Another thing you may notice is the impact of texture, and we see this quite clearly, right? If you look at the individual color blocks, these do look quite smooth or even having no texture, but when you kind of zoom out, we see just the greater whole feels like it's made up of fragments of crystalline parts. That's really what I mean by a flurry of crystalline parts there. So that gives a sense of motion, if you will. It almost feels like there's this sense of depth as one is kind of speaking before one another, and it's kind of flowing back and forth. It is quite psychedelic, there is no doubt about that. And so when looking at this work, the title of this piece is Gemstone City, and that's quite fitting, right? We talked about this kind of crystalline influence that we see within the work at hand. Crystals and, of course, gemstones, even glass more broadly, are what we call catalysts of light. So if you hold a crystal or a gemstone up to the light, it's going to intensify that by nature of its form. And so that really conveys the divine in so many different ways. If we look at light as an element of divinity, then anything which intensifies light is also going to be divine as well. So we see that quite well within the composition before us. And so, when creating this work, the original artist was talking about the influences of psychedelics, as it allows you to see, complex beauty in something as simple as a leaf. And I think that's absolutely stunning. You look close, it seems a little simple, but when you zoom out, it's just absolutely stunning and incredibly complex. So with this in mind, how do you feel when you view this piece? It's a pretty interesting question you may ask. And so, like I said, there's just so many layers and just fragmented parts within the composition here. And as a result of that, we get this grand sense of scale, right? You have, of course, very small pieces, and you have the much larger, greater whole, and then also larger color blocks as well. So this kind of dwarfs the viewer, but not only gives us a sense of scale and gives a sense of size in relation to those much smaller pieces. I think that's incredibly important here. And so in creating this work, the original artist also talked about the influences of Toronto. This may be reminiscent of, you looking over the city, kind of a macro perspective there. And the artist was talking about how, there's always someone new to meet or something new to experience in the city as well. I think that's an incredible point that is extremely important when we're looking at this work. And so actually brought in two additional pieces from one of my favorite artists, Le Chat Noir. We're going to bring that in real quick, see what we can learn and compare it to the work before us here. Alright, so I brought in two works here. On the right, we have Le Rêve Bleu. Hopefully I pronounced that. I am not French. And on the left, we have Tribute, both coming from the artist Le Chat Noir. And so what's so interesting is in both these instances, they feel reminiscent of a city, right? In one instance, she was talking about, flying over the city in a dream type of setting. And another instance, we see what's reminiscent of almost Cairo or the Egyptian landscape in a way as well. And it's incredibly dynamic. It's incredibly abstract. And there's this vivid light in both instances of these works. The reason I brought these in is because it's quite reminiscent of the work before us here. You have, of course, a grand sense of scale that's implied by all these much smaller fragments. You also have an intensity of light across all three of these instances as well. And you also have the influence of a large cityscape or a city horizon, and so we see that quite clearly in all three instances. I thought that was a great example to bring in these two pieces, quite old pieces, some of the first ones I ever studied, and I thought that was a good thing to connect to this stunning piece, Gemstone City. And so before we talk about the medium of this work, the original artist was talking about how even though there's so many people on this planet, we all have the ability to have kind of a creative spell, if you will. We can create things, we can gift them to each other and show them to each other like, creative runes or magic artifacts. I think that's absolutely stunning. And it's a true testament to the power of the individual and the power of just creative expression as a whole. And so the medium of this work is quite interesting, right? The original artist is working with an app, I believe it's called Mirror Lab, and he essentially goes through this process over and over again where he creates the collage over time, and we see the absolutely stunning results of that. We talked about these much smaller fragments in comparison to the greater whole, and the greater whole is only the result of such staggering and intricate and kind of painstaking process of that. So all of those iterations just evolved this piece into the work before us here, and so it's absolutely stunning. We always love to study that. I actually offered the artist if I could, support some of his work directly, and he was totally okay with that. I was able to purchase this as a one-of-one NFT on the Tezos blockchain. So really happy to be able to hold this piece, and I absolutely loved it, of course. An incredible visual energy, incredible use of texture, of course, the collage of the greater whole, and there's no doubt that it is incredibly psychedelic. So really hope y'all enjoyed today. We talked about so many different things, from the impact of grand scale, psychedelics, this incredible light to the composition, this sense of energy, this sense of texture, so many different things we hit on today. I truly hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all enjoyed today's episode, go check out the original artist, A-Merk. He's doing some amazing stuff in multiple different mediums, including AI generative art as well. So if y'all want to check him out, it's going to be the best place to do so, and you can even support his work through NFTs as well. If you want to support him directly so you can keep creating such stunning works as we see here. So I really hope y'all enjoyed today, and like I said, if y'all enjoyed today's episode, go check out the original artist. My name is Apollo, this was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.